Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You're joining me for a round 10 mid-round review. I haven't done a little mid-round review in a hot minute, but going to be away for work this week. And the last time I was away for work and tried recording, it was pretty terrible quality. I've got to work around this time, but I thought we'd just do a little bit of mid-round update just in case that all goes poorly. Now, look, I know Abs Magic is actually now the king of the press conference, and to be honest, I would have asked him to join me for one, but I assume he's either chasing down Ryan Mansell with a pitchfork like the rest of the Tigers mob, or he's found Noah Anderson. He's giving him a hiding. But we'll move on and talk about the team and kind of where it's at, kind of what's going on with the round so far, and we'll go from there. We'll also look at SuperCoach data for some live ranks and see where I'm at, because I think, like, just with the way it's gone so far, is my team doesn't seem like it's gone badly, but I feel like I've had a really bad round, if that makes sense. So, like, look, I mean, I've only had one of my rookies play. It's Ryan, a 58, whatever. And then everyone else is pretty much gone all right. I mean, there's Zeeble, 88, and Stewart, 91. It's the most I can complain about after that. Traded in Merritt, 162 there. The captain score wasn't ideal, but yeah, I mean, if Petrarca could have handled that ball better in the fourth quarter, like he had a shot at goal to get him in front, which he shanked off the boot, and like every time he got his hands on the ball, he like fumbled like it was soap in prison. Like, it was not good fourth quarter for Petrarca. It could have easily been a 130 or 140, but hey. But yeah, I mean, it's even with kind of everything going all right, it definitely feels like it's going to be a down week, and that's what we'll check on the SuperCoach live ranks in a moment, because what I'm missing is all the rookies that have popped off, and actually some of the premiums as well, a little bit unique. So Humphreys and Atkins are the two from tonight, which are really going to hurt. Bring up their scores here. Where are they? Atkins 102, Humphrey 101. So, like, pretty common. A lot of people have both those. And then Ashcroft also in this game at 124, which is just nutso for a rookie. I mean, you can't see that on screen, but yeah, those are the three that are going to hurt me in a regard, because I have none of them. So it's like 50 points in any rookie that I have probably in their place. And the big part of the strategy to this point has been getting these rookies off field early, getting the premiums in, and then kind of getting a leg up, right? Because if you've got one extra premium that's scoring 50 points over someone's rookie each week, then you're making up ground. But if they've now got rookies scoring on hundreds and they've got multiple of them and I don't have them, it hurts. It goes the other way. So I think this week I'm going to be taking some medicine after a few good weeks and going backwards. So what we've had, like 4 or 5 weeks in a row, we've moved up and gone from, well, it was like at least 5 digits into almost top 100. But yeah, this week feels like it's going to be one where it goes backwards. So just in terms of trades, Hopper and Chandler out for Sharp and Merritt. Chandler did well, 86. Like, obviously this like Sharp thing is annoying, but part of the reason why I wanted the 150k in the bank was so I could get Ryan to Laird or another primo next week, which is why I ultimately went with Sharp. And I thought, like, you know, looping Sharp and Weddle and then, you know, playing Brian Mitchell, like, it was going to be okay. I probably didn't need to have Bailey Humphrey, and I also wasn't sure how he was going to score against a Brisbane Lions team if they got blown out. Obviously, it was okay. So yeah, I mean, Merritt in is obviously a pretty big deal, and that's really nice. But yeah, not having Humphrey, not having Atkins is going to hurt for a couple of reasons. The points this week, one, the cash gen two, because the bench is looking pretty rubbish. And then during the buy, so I've got that great buy, it's going to help get other people points there. So I'm going to lose a little bit extra on that side. So yeah, spot of bother this week, spot of bother. But yeah, hopefully now I can go Ryan and like Sin Cotter out to like maybe Fleeton and Laird next week. And then sit on trades until the buys. So the midfield will be looking pretty good at that point. If I've got Laird there, it'll just be like a Neil or a Steele or a Mills or something like that after that first buy still to go. Probably swap Sheasel over to Dawson during that last buy. And I mean, let's start talking about these games pretty quickly. So yeah, Port Melbourne already just spoke about the problem with I can't really see these, can you? With let's see if I can adjust this. Here we go. Yeah, so I already spoke about the problem with Petrarca being very like slippery well, like just didn't have good control of that ball in the fourth. Ended up with 10 clangers, which matched the clearance of one Zach Butters, who went 184. And that's also like the other problem which I talked about. So it's not only Humphreys, Atkins, Ashcroft, but there are a few uniques that went really big this week that I don't have. And once again, I've been benefiting from anti-potting some of these. Not Butters, he's been great. Like he's now a 150 average over the last 3 weeks. But Petrak has been unique for me. This has been his first kind of down week since owning him. And then there's Butters, there's like Laird, there's Brayshaw, Sarong. So those types of which I haven't owned, they've gone big. So yeah, it's kind of just been a reverse of the last month, really, which is going to hurt the ranking for sure. Like I think there's almost no way I don't go backwards, even though I'm projected into the 2400s at the moment. Look, we'll say for the third week in a row, Dill Williams being subbed when he was on the bubble has just been so painful because it's 380s in a row. Would have been really handy cash gen points on field, absolute blessing. But yeah, stuffed out of that. And then Butters, I didn't get, even though I advocated for people to trade him in at that 490 price point because I already had cogs in my last buy stuffed. So if I didn't have cogs, it would have been Butters. And yeah, it is what it is. Not really too much else to talk about on this side, I think, from either team. I mean, Gorn owners be a little bit frustrated. It's just a bit hard with the weather conditions. Because when Gorn does like to two his marks, and he wasn't rucking that much, like Grundy had a lot of ruck time. So, yeah. Vern Ruin, I thought was all right as well. So he should continue to get games and hold his spot. But yeah, not much else there. And then, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the games that I miss with kids' birthday parties, which is pain. But just quickly talk through some of the scores and considerations and stuff I heard as well. So on the north side, I think 2 rookies coming through that are worth having an eye on, which is Eddie Ford, who turned up, and he's mature age, I want to say as well. And then Wardlaw, who impressed in the midfield, but faded out of that game a little bit. And like the low time on ground, which is kind of what you expect with someone coming back from injury. Eddie Ford actually really low time on ground as well, 64. Yeah, just I mean, it's almost like North had some problems with that interchange just based on looking like that. Oh, and then the other one was Drury, who like obviously some people went early on and he scored another poor game this week. It looked like he got saved last week just because of the amount of forced outs. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually gets dropped true and proper this week. Look, the big news with this one was Sheasel kind of getting moved out of position. So from what I heard, it was like more forward, half forward, wing, and then even onto the ball at points in time. So definitely forward of the ball rather than behind it with Hall coming in and playing behind the ball and then Zeeble being there as well. And I think this is a little bit of concern because, as I mentioned, I wanted to hold him through to the last round of the buys and then trade him to Dawson. And that just, I don't know if that's going to hold well because North aren't going to be competitive with all the games up until then. And he might start leaking money. So I'm not sure if I can really afford for that to happen. I know Guigo, who, is into the top 10, I think, based on live rank at the moment, traded Sheasel this week, which I think will work out for him well, even though Sheasel scored the 112 this week. But that may be something that starts cropping up more and more in conversation over the next couple of weeks. We'll just see what they persist with. And then, yeah, nothing else really worth talking about from this side, I don't think. And then on the Swan side, I mean, Chad Warner was one I was talking about where if you're looking for a cheap option with Mills down, have a look his way. And 137, if anyone actually did that, it would have been rewarded handsomely. Even though this is against poor opposition. Goulden was one people were looking at either vice captain or captain, seeing he got tagged, but still worked through that well and got the 9600 for DT. And then Francis kind of disappointing. McAndrew debuted, and you had Laddams go down. I think the thing is he's only really covering for Hickey, who had a concussion, so Hickey should be back next week. McAndrew's probably out. Maybe he plays the second ruck with Laddams gone. Depending on the severity of this injury, which I'm not sure much about. But yeah, and then Sheldrick, who's a rookie that we would have been keen for if he was actually getting full mid-time, but got, I think, his second game as a sub, so not really one you can look at. Bulldogs Adelaide, so Bont was my captain here, and he was on, I want to say, almost 70 at halftime, and then kind of just tracked towards a pretty average 112 at the end. Said he got knee discomfort, and what I've seen from the press with Bevo afterwards is that it was nothing structural, so he should be okay. Oh, and actually, that's probably worth talking about from the Melbourne game as well. There's been some talk that Clary's got scans on his hamstring, so that's a wait and see, like what that is. So it's like, it would be so frustrating if the guy that is like been bulletproof for 5 years. He's been in my team 2 weeks and cops a hammy. But anyway, all right. So yeah, English was good in this game. Bont was good. Basically, if you had a dog, you were happy. Look at all these tons here. There was like 10. 1, 2, 3, 6. Yeah, like 10 or 11. So news. JJ looks like he did a hammy, which is no good. Otherwise, everyone up here was great. Those that traded in Bailey Smith, I think he's now turned up 4 times in a row. He's been good. Time on ground still isn't in the 90s, but it has been raising steadily and obviously benefiting from Trelaw out of the side. McRae had a really good game. I'm not actually sure what his forward stats were in this one, but kicked 2 goals. So I'm not sure if that means he's more likely or less likely to get DPP. Maybe if we just quickly look at the CBAs here, see what we can find out. Not that these are the be all and end all. Oh, hasn't got round 10 in there anyway. Okay. Where was I? But yeah, I mean, everyone scored well on this. And then on the Crow side, I mean, Dawson's now had a couple of down games in a row, which I guess is good for those who didn't chase his points. And then Laird's gone massive. He's going to be a big trade-in target this week. He beat his break-even a bit like Merritt, so had high break-even, still beat it anyway. I think he's going to be about 600k. And they didn't pull him off in the fourth, even though they could have with, the way the scoreboard had gone. So that's probably a good sign. No one else really worth talking about in this game. Freo Geelong. So a little bit disappointing that Johnson was the sub in this one, just because it does hurt his cash gen. But really positive in 30% game time. Was actually able to put up 40 DT and 37 SuperCoach. So hopefully that puts him in a good place to hold his spot. Fife they were managed, who was the sub off. And then, Sarong, Brayshaw, and these are like the other ones, the 130s here from players you don't own, even though they're not most owned, like they definitely are owned or people's unique. So, if I've got Petrarca going 100 and they've got a Butters or a Sarong or a Brayshaw that's putting 80, like there's somewhere between 30 and 80 points. I mean, that obviously hurts. Darcy didn't have a huge week this one, which is kind of handy for me, even though he's not that popularly owned anymore. And on the Cat side, look, Nevitt was just okay this week. He had a really good first quarter and then trailed off. Simpson was the poor one who got subbed off on the 20. Some people will have fielded him, which is awful. I assume this actually hurts his cash gen a fair bit too, and I'm actually wondering what his job security in the side is like now. Let's have a look. Break even of 9, so still go up a little bit of cash, which is all right. Like, you made a bit. GWS next week, which is a good matchup. What was his projected? 57. He's going to have about a 60 break even, maybe a bit more next week. So, he might be someone that you could trade out, which is kind of annoying because you want, like, these types of guys you're bringing in, you want to hold them through to the buys. Sava kept on. For those that took a risk on Hawkins, he was okay. Oh, and then Stewart, just the 91, which is a bit frustrating. Especially with Duncan out, I would have thought he would have done better than this, but anyway. I guess it also didn't see them losing to Freo. And then Gold Coast, Brisbane. So, I've spoken about Atkins and Humphrey a lot, but the craziest part about this game is that they beat out Rowell and Anderson when it came to scoring, which is just, wasn't on my bingo card, not something I expected. Down games from Powell as well. Fiorini didn't score well from a Supercoach perspective. And then on the line side, I mean, a lot of good scores here, like Dunkley, Neil, Ashcroft. Yeah, all good. Wilmot, for those that still held him. I think McKenna was the one that was poor, like 53. And then the annoying thing with Sharp here that was like tracking okay. This is like 3/4 time he got subbed off and really only ended up with 52% game time. So to have this score from 52% game time is pretty good. If you think normally it's like 80, then these would be about 80s you'd be getting from a Sharp, but it's just whether or not he gets an opportunity with Rich coming back next week. Who knows? This is frustrating for sure. And I thought he wouldn't be as much of a sub out risk because he's a good runner. But we saw it with Hollands last week. We saw it with Sharp this week. It doesn't necessarily give them immunity or anything like that. And then finally, Essendon and Richmond, which backs up Miami Heat this morning. So going 2-0 there and then parlaying that into the Essendon win tonight. These both ease the pain of the Supercoach and fantasy teams definitely having down weeks. So, pretty interesting game, to be honest. Like, Tigers in the first quarter had the lion's share of the ball, but weren't able to convert. And then it felt like the next couple of quarters, she was on the other foot where Essendon was pressing, but Richmond was able to repel and actually get ahead. And then we're able to get back and kind of clutch it up at the end there. I think the interesting thing was Essendon's change in game plan for this, where we were much more uncontested, kick mark, stop, rather than trying to like overlap handball or get run or, attack through the corridor or anything like that, which is probably more in vogue. So that was the game plan they took with the Tigers. And I think it worked okay. I mean, we got the win, both undermanned sides. So it's really hard to know how much it would have worked on a proper Tigers outfit. But the upshot of this was we had, I want to say something like 40 to 50 more uncontested marks than what we would normally have. So we'd normally have like 80. And then this was much more like the game style that people were hoping Essendon would play in the preseason, which would have benefited Setterfield because he loves getting uncontested marks through the middle of the ground. And it also would have benefited Ridley, who scored his highest score for his year now that he's out of all of our sides. The 14 marks, was able to kick it around a lot. I mean, he did some good stuff defensively on top of all that, don't get me wrong. But yeah, this is just super frustrating that he's finally gone and puts out the score. But I wouldn't get baited into it. I don't think this is how Essendon's going to continue to play going forward. Yeah, I mean, 154 marks. I think our average before this game was something like 80. So it was nearly double the amount of marks that we would normally have. All right, so Merritt, obviously, Gun. Great score this week. If you didn't trade him next week, he'll be a trading target for you, and you'll probably be weighing up against someone like Led if you don't have Led, given they both have the same buy. Merritt's got the really nice fixture, which is part of the reason why we're leaning into him as an option. And then with Shield and Setterfield and Parrish all out, he really became the main guy in the midfield tonight, which we saw both doing the work at stoppage and then around the ground as well, where they're looking for him. Shield should be back next week based on what we heard in the presser tonight from Brad Scott. There was, in the same incident that he hurt his ankle, he got a cork in his calf. It had a slight bleed. So he could have played, but they decided to keep him out rather than him try and play through it, not at 100%. So I would say based on that, he's likely to play next week. But yeah. All right. And then, I mean, it's a Essendon win. So Redmond, of course, scored pretty well, which we've talked about a bit. But then Caldwell, Hobbs, a couple of the guys that got to stand up in the midfield. And I'd love to see what the CBA numbers were, but both scored better. I thought Hobbs looked really good. Caldwell had his moments, even though it was a bit clumsy at times. And then Davey kicked a goal early, which seems to continue with his pattern of being good early and then fading off. So yeah, I mean, for those that held like me, it's more just about at least he'll be a warm body during the buys, probably, even though his scoring's not the best and he won't be making money. So that's where he's at. I think I saw some of the player rating stuff that actually had him rated quite highly in terms of impact on the game, using some different measures. But yeah. And then on the Tigers side, Tim Turano continues to be pretty big. Had him penciled in for a good game here, especially with no Hopper. And yeah, those are some nice scores. I had him as my vice captain in fantasy, so I'll take the 120. Yeah, Ryan's the annoying one here. So he was on 47 at halftime and ended on 58, which is a bit painful. I think the only thing he did in the second half was take one contested mark. And that must have been where his points came from. Outside of that, not a whole lot happened. With Nankervis come back, he's gone into that, forward that plays resting ruck. So he's someone that can probably get moved on this week or, thereabouts. Let's have a look. So his break-even was 12. If with the 78, he was projected to make 29K. I think for every 5 you miss it, or maybe every 10 you miss it, it's about 5K. Something like that. So maybe he only made 20K this week. He should be about 360. I think that sounds about right. And then his break-even next week was going to be 55, even if he scored the 78. So even if you miss it by 20, it's going to be up in the 60s or 70s, I'd say. Port next week, which is a nice matchup, depending on what they're doing in the ruck. But yeah, I think Samson's probably one that you can trade out or thereabouts. And then, yeah, really not a whole lot else to talk about. I mean, Dow, even though I think he's a cheap option, he obviously got subbed out. It's not really relevant. Short, continue to be okay if anyone's considering him as a defender once he gets DPP. And that's about it. So let's have a look at the old SuperCoach data. Check the live rankings for the round. So some of you will have seen me use this before. If you haven't, the website is supercoachdata.com. And then you can just click up the top here, which you can't really see, but there's this SuperCoach AFL tab that you click into, and then it brings up this page. Maybe I'll just adjust it so you can see a little bit better. There we go. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and you can sign up and support him, which is great. You can get into the VIP section over here, which I won't be showing for obvious reasons. But up here, it shows you where it's been updated to. So it's only been updated for the first 4 games of the round, and he only updates either the top 5K, which I think is this one over here, or the top 20K, which is this one over here. So if you're ranked well outside either of those and you haven't signed up, your team won't be in here. But for most others that are up towards the top, it will be. And then if I go to ranking live, which is this green one down the bottom, it shows you what the par for the round is so far. So my 2400 looks very good to this, but because it hasn't been updated for a lot of the games today, remember it only had the first 4, which were up until so none of tonight's games, no Brisbane Gold Coast or Essendon and Richmond, and that's a really big deal because I think Humphrey's projected in this is only like 10, so he beat that by 90. I'm sure Atkins beat his. I know Ashcroft beat his by about 60. So if those are commonly owned, and you can see the par shooting up 100 just off the back of those alone, then you also had Merritt beat his by 50, 60. So if he's popularly owned, then the par could easily be 100, 150 on top of this, right? If not more. So just quickly here, just shout out a couple of people. So Airplane Jelly, who's locked on the Discord, he was live rank 1 before this. I think the guy that's moved down below him, though, had Humphrey and Ashcroft. No, Humphrey and Hobbs, which is like reasonable trade-in, bit of a risky one. Although he had Noah Anderson, which is no good here. Atkins. So sorry, just over here, you can see like for each team you click into, the players they've got, who's played, who's playing now. So this hasn't been updated for these games because it's got them as playing now. And then who's still to play for their sides. And then the projected, which is not the SuperCoach projected, it's just his own projected rankings and the points. And that kind of gives them the score. And then based on this projected score, mix of what's happened and what's projected, you get the live rank. So locks up here in 1. And then Guigo is like top 10 here now. So moving up from 21. His big move for the week was trading out Sheasel, and he got in Merritt and Sarong this week. So yeah, Sarong's 135. The Merritt is projected for 106, but actually went what was it in the end? 162. So he beats that by 60, which is nice. But I don't think he's got Powell, who didn't score well. He also doesn't have the Gold Coast guys like Atkins, Humphrey. And I think he traded Ashcroft a while ago as well. So that's going to hurt a bit. But all right, so that's kind of how it works. You can see then what your rank is based on these projections, and that obviously changes. Like, it's just projections. So I'm going to chuck in my team, and we will see what the damage is this week. Not too bad. Look, only 30, 40 spots I would take if that's where it ends up. So but yeah, this hasn't been updated, so I think this is going to get worse than this, right? So even though Merritt beat his projected, Toronto beat his, but it doesn't matter because everyone owns. Dunkley beat his, but everyone owns, so it's also going to put up the par. Sharp I don't have playing, Cosplay I have playing. Yeah, none of those matter. So yeah, this is going to be worse than this by like a fair bit. Hopefully I don't drop outside maybe the 300 or 400. That's hopefully that'll be where it is. But yeah, this week I'm definitely copping some punishment. I just got to try and keep it in perspective, which is if like a month ago you told me that I'd be top 500, say, I'd be happy. But once you get up to 166 and then go back to 400 and you still end up with top 500, it just feels so much worse. So just got to keep the overall trends up even if we have a negative week. Hopefully I just don't go backwards too much because I think otherwise the team's in a good spot. And then, yeah, in terms of like quick plan from here, so I think Ryan and Sincott are out next week for Laird, and Fleeton will be the play. Down to 13 trades, but I'll have just 2 rookies left in Weddle and Mitchell. And then everyone else will be like premiums or discount premiums, that kind of range. The issue, of course, is going to be managing this team through the buys, and then that's what I'll probably wait on. So I think I'll stick at 20 premiums and 2 rookies until we start getting into the buys and save my trades to manage my team through that period where I need to go from something like 14 playing in the last buy up to 18, 19 type thing, ideally 19. So if I've got to use 5-6 trades just for that, it's I need to hang on to them from this point on. But look, 13 trades with just 2 main upgrades to go. I'll definitely get a full team done. It's just a matter of how well I can handle the buys, and then obviously any injury concerns from here on out, as well as like who finishes the side, because like I don't have Walsh. I don't really have a spot for Walsh, but I need Walsh if he's going to be the M1. The F1 once he gets DPP. Similarly, you've got like Dawson, who I don't have, who I'd like to get, and then I think my midfield's pretty good once they get led for the most part, to be honest. Maybe not having Sarong or like Libba is going to be the issue, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford those, because realistically, once Ryan's gone, I'm out of money in this side as well until Weddle and Mitchell get a bit juicy, or if Johnson comes back and gets a full-time role. Because Robert's injured, Davies not making money, Madden's a loop, Constant's not getting a game, Sharp may not get a game, Johnson's been sub, Gowan's not getting a game, and Sincotta's going to go. So, yeah. All right. And the only other things for tomorrow, I guess, is really around Darcy Cameron watches the big one. So talk about whether he will end up being sub or getting played in the best 22 and having someone like Ash Johnson be the sub instead. I think like ideally for us, he'd be sub, and we can get a bit of a gauge on him because his break even is something like 55. So even though, 55. So even though he won't lose money if he's the sub, it'll give us like he might lose a little bit depending on how late they put him on. It'll like give us an idea for where he's at, and then give us some time on like, do we actually need to trade him in, or can we wait? Because he's in that round 14 buy, and a lot of people will be starting to struggle a bit there. Although actually for my team, I could probably handle that okay in the forward line. Although Ryan's going to be gone. The cogs will be in there. I don't know, we'll see. In the midfield, it's not good, especially once I bring in Laird. That's going to be the tricky part. Go back though. All right. Well, I think I've talked for enough for a little bit of a mid-round update. I hope your round is going well. If you're those that have Ashcroft, Atkins, Humphrey, you're probably flying and feeling pretty good. If you traded in Merit, you'll be happy at least you nailed your trades this week. But I'll try and catch you during the week. Look, if I can't get one done early, I'll try and get one done towards the end, or at least share my trades and whatnot. But hope you're going well, and I'll catch you during the week. Peace.